Good day, dear friends. I am pleased to welcome you to the HR Generalist course. This is our first session where we will learn what this role entails and its role within the company. This is the first session of the course. Our course consists of 22 sessions and provides a comprehensive set of knowledge for HR generalists who work in a company, providing all the necessary tools. The course is recorded in Power Webinar format. Our first session is live, the others are recorded, and precisely because they are recorded, this course has become 22 sessions, unlike before. Previously, there were 12. All right then, so today we will discuss what roles exist in the company, the evolution of HR in the company, and what an HR generalist should and should not do. We will touch upon trends, soft skills, and how to be an HR leader, not just an HR executor. Here we have the course website. So I will start with a brief self-introduction. My name is Mike Pritula, and I have worked in various companies in different industries. These include Alpha Bank, the STB TV channel, the company Wargaming, the company Preplay, the company Ideals, and I consulted for PeopleForce. From the perspective of our course today, why is my experience interesting and useful? An HR generalist involves performing all HR functions. That is simultaneously a recruiter, a trainer, a performance manager, and for compensation, benefits, employer branding, and so on. It means you need to do everything and do it hands-on. And throughout my experience working in different companies, in various positions, I truly had to do everything myself. There is no area in HR that I have not personally handled, have not worked on in Excel. I didn't create tables, didn't create Word documents, any presentations, didn't develop or implement anything. That is, I not only managed everything, but also did it personally. Then I led departments. This might also interest you. HR Generalist is one of the first roles in HR for many. So you might be interested to know that when I was building my career, I won all sorts of nominations, even got printed on a magazine cover. I received all kinds of awards and diplomas. I was a conference speaker. That is, my achievements were recognized by various organizations, and I have 3 international certificates. The Academy has also existed for quite some time. We train a lot of people in more than 50 countries, in 4 languages at the moment, and the Academy also has achievements. I rely on best practices in my work. In this course, there will be my personal experience from 15 years of recruitment work and 5 years of consulting companies. And there will be the best global practices. This is what awaits you in the course. Now, about getting to know you, if you wish, write who you are and what your position is. Are you a charge generalist or not a charge generalist? I'm always interested in that, so if anyone is ready, you can write in the chat here. This course has 22 classes and 22 practical homework assignments. Why practical? Because you will need to do almost everything in the company where you work. You will be implementing something, testing, holding meetings, interviewing someone, and so on. And thanks to this, you will gain real practical experience. You will send all of this to me. I will review it from the perspective of my experience, comment on it, provide feedback, and guide you for improvement. If for business, what you showed is unacceptable, if it cannot be implemented in the company in this form. So it is feedback. It's not just a set of webinars. It's practice. It's feedback. It's your growth. After all 22 homework assignments are accepted, we will be able to issue you a diploma, and you will truly be able to be proud of it. Now let's move on to our session today. We'll try to figure out who an HR generalist is. In HR, there are actually a lot of different positions and roles. There are more than 40, and they can be grouped by functions. Once I drew up such a map. Here are different functions, and there is such a universal function. The HR generalist is also here. From the perspective of a simple, understandable career growth, an HR generalist is not an entry-level position. Although companies often open the HR generalist position and look for people with little experience, this is, let's say, a vote of confidence in you. It's great that such opportunities exist. But in general, if we consider an HR career, then in HR, they come to the role of assistant in the recruiting department, training department, or simply the HR department, different departments. Oh, we have the first comment in the chat, Alexandra. Good day, my name is Alexandra. I am from Kazakhstan, work remotely as an HR for a company and do some recruiting on the side. I am interested in everything related to HR, that's why I'm here. Cool, Alexandra, nice to meet you. After someone has worked as an HR assistant, they become an HR specialist, then HR manager, and then HR generalist. Then it can be head of HR, HR director, and then further. In terms of income, an HR generalist earns approximately $1,500 on average. If it's an IT company, we know that IT companies usually pay higher. It could be around $2,000. Well, that's the average salary. Some will pay $800, some $1,000, some $2,000, some $3,000, or even more. So as we can see, the position is well paid if you know how to perform it, and we will learn how to perform it in this course. Now let's look at what roles exist in HR. In HR, there is usually a personnel department. This involves all kinds of orders, contracts, applications, the recruitment and adaptation department, employer branding, internal communications, training and development, rewards and benefits, HR automation. There can be business partners, and there can be an HR operations department. HR generalist, which we are discussing in this course, is essentially all these departments in one person. That is, it's the HR department in one person. It's essentially the HR director at an early stage of the company's development, if you're lucky. Joining as an HR generalist in a company that is growing, you will grow with it and can become an HR director. This is the right hand of the general director. The person who is responsible for all personnel in the company acts as an internal HR expert and consultant. And sometimes they are asked to manage other departments, financial, legal, office manager, or someone else, whom the CEO does not want to manage. And this is not directly related to the business, so it's not sales or marketing. Since the HR generalist is the only HR in the company, they need to have all HR competencies developed at a basic level. So they need to know a little bit of everything. That's why in this course we cover all HR areas. You can check what you already know and what you don't yet with our HR knowledge checklist. Let me tell you right away, this checklist is universal. It's not only for HR generalists, it's for all HR professionals. Therefore, it is not expected that you will score 100% there. Well, scoring around 50 to 60% is useful for an HR generalist. And the exact same checklist is already available on our PapaHR platform. Recommendations for skill development are already appearing there. Soon all of them will be there. You can fill it out there as well. Now let's look at which companies have HR generalists, and generally how there may or may not be HR generalists, because there are different models for structuring an HR department. HR generalist. This is HR in a company where there is only one HR. Therefore, it is called a generalist, a kind of universal HR. This is when there is no division into personnel, recruiting, training, and other functions. Although because we have personnel, it's a big paperwork hassle. It's not the simplest legislation, different reports. It may happen that the company has an HR person or accountant or lawyer dealing with HR and an HR journalist who does not handle HR matters. Either the company does not hire people on staff, but works with them on a freelance basis, then there are no personnel there either. A company may also have an HR generalist and a recruiter. In that case, the HR generalist handles everything except recruiting. Further, if there are already several HR employees in the company, then this is not an HR generalist, but a head of HR or HR lead. They may have HR managers who also may not focus on just one function, but perform 2 to 3 related functions. If the company becomes large enough and dedicated areas begin to emerge, that is, either representatives of each HR function or even heads of each HR function, that is when the role of HR director appears. So, the HR director is a leader where functions are already divided into areas, and it may be when HR business partners also appear, that tripod model, that is, the HR director manages all of HR, the functional area handles its functions, and HR business partners interact with the business. There can be a company without human resources. In this case, the general director is essentially also the human resources director. However, sometimes HR generalists can be found in very large companies. And the question arises, why is that? There should be one HR. So maybe if this large company has a separate office or a store or a branch of a bank or something else, and they hire a versatile HR for the role of HR generalist who works with this office or with this store, then the HR generalist interacts with the central HR. There is an HR director. Some HR program policies are implemented and something is developed locally, so that option can also exist. Let's move on. Now let's see how HR develops in a company and how HR has evolved as a function overall. That is, HR in a company does not immediately become super advanced, super developed, super strategic. It goes through a similar evolution as the HR function has undergone globally. The HR function appeared quite a long time ago, and it was not even an HR function, but rather a social welfare officer. That is, what is interesting is that it was not companies, but the state that began to take care of people, to protect the rights of women and children, care for sick and affected employees, and this was a reaction to tightening of labor conditions. When the Industrial Revolution occurred, but possible machines and equipment appeared, such tasks began to emerge. When there were world wars, the First and Second World War, there was a need to actively account for people. They were hired, then dismissed, then transferred, and the function of the personnel officer emerged. Something more or less resembling modern human resources appeared around the year 1945, and the first HR association also appeared around those times. For example, with HRM, it was created about 70 years ago, sometime in the 1950s. Only then did they start talking about personnel management. You see, it's not very on all profession. Financiers, some accountants appeared, and salespeople much earlier. In the years from 1980 to 2000, HR became more about personnel efficiency, adopting many approaches from consulting companies. And since 2000, HR started moving towards business partnership. That is, becoming such a partner for the business. Now, HR is beginning to transform towards digital HR, working with artificial intelligence, and later there will be work with robots. And this is just emerging. These were the stages of development. As the HR function evolved, it increased its influence on the business from just some primitive tasks. HR was arriving at solutions for more global, more important tasks, and the modern HR in a company also undergoes certain development and evolution. It also starts with taking care of employees. Often employee care is the work of the office manager, and the office manager gradually solving various tasks turns into HR and starts to grow, if they develop, of course. That is, this evolution, the transition from operational routine HR activities to more transformational ones, and the implementation of increasingly complex HR processes is what can be observed in modern companies. And this is essentially how your expertise will grow as you develop. What else is happening in human resources now? Human resources is more about strategy. Previously, human resources devoted very little time to strategy. And from one perspective, there was not much demand from the business and time. Now, thanks to automation, and because managers, thankfully, are beginning to understand HR a little better, there is more time for strategy. Another interesting model describing HR work is Dave Ulrich's model. Dave Ulrich is the author of books on HR, an expert in the field of HR, and the author of many competency models, especially early in the field of HR. He once said, look, HR can be easily divided into 4 key roles. HR should care about the present and the future, about people and processes. And the roles here arise on one hand as an employee advocate, and on the other hand as a change agent. From the third side, a strategic partner, and from the fourth, an administrative expert. These are the roles HR should fulfill. How to be an HR leader instead of an HR executor. Many HRs feel offended that they are seen as merely support staff and are not invited to business meetings. Their opinions are not asked, decisions are made without them, and then communicated to them. Ignore them, do not take them seriously, treat them like a girl or boy who is just doing something insignificant. But it is important to understand that it is not only the business's fault, often it is the HR's fault itself. Therefore, essentially, it depends on you whether you will be a strategic partner. Will you feel like a superhero in your company? Or will you just be a service? You will be treated like a support staff. It depends on you. How to be a business partner? You need to understand not only HR issues, but also business matters. Be interested in strategy, business processes, the market, leadership issues, change management, and project activities. The more you focus on this, the more chances you have to become such a business partner. What should and should not a person in the role of an HR generalist do? We can rely here on the SHRM competency model. There is an organization. It is the very first HR organization in the world, community of professionals in the field of HR management. As I said, it is about 70 years old. They developed a competency model consisting of soft skills and hard skills, and it clearly describes what needs to be done. So, hard skills are divided into working with people. This means an HR generalist should be able to plan, hire, train, reward, and so on. Then the organization, that is the ability to build the HR function, although the HR generalist is the only HR, but this is already building HR as functions. That is the ability to properly set up everything, processes, policies, practices, relationships with employees, the people management system. And this is also about taking care of jobs, how people work. What should an HR generalist not do? Office management, conducting meetings with employees instead of the manager. Sometimes managers try to pass off their work onto HR and say, listen, let's have you set goals for my employees. Let's have you evaluate my employees. Let's have you conduct meetings instead of me. No, this is not it. Only recruiting, then it's just a recruiter. Should not be an assistant to the manager planning meetings on the calendar or executing assignments from team leaders. This is an assistant role, but not about HR generalists. What behavioral skills are needed for the role of a HR generalist? This is also very important to understand. First of all, it is leadership and navigation. It is important to understand that a HR generalist is a proactive role. It's about leading the company forward, propose some changes, suggest some improvements, influence the business, help implement certain initiatives, build culture, participate in developing missions, develop an HR strategy. That is, it's important not to feel like, a small link, an insignificant position. It's important to understand that this is not the case. An HR generalist is an important role, responsible for the HR function, and thus is a leader. Then, ethical practice. Since employees and the company interact, and many different issues arise, the task of the HR generalist is to ensure that the treatment of employees aligns with ethical practices, that there is no conflict of interest, no unfairness, some kind of rudeness and so on, business acumen. This means that the HR generalist must understand the company's business, must understand how the company makes money. How much does it earn? What is happening in the business? What are the products? Who are the partners? Who are the clients? To what extent do different HR activities help or not help the company? What is the external environment the company is in? What are the company's strengths? What are the company's weaknesses? How can initiatives be digitized and shown as some kind of financial benefit for the company? Managing relationships. HR acts as an intermediary between employees and the company and should help build effective relationships. It's like a partnership between two partners, but here we have the company on one side and the employees on the other. No one should take advantage of the other side, otherwise it is ineffective. Consulting, HR is expected to provide consultations and advice. Often both employees and managers have no one else to turn to for advice except HR. Critical evaluation is about the ability to rely on numbers, on facts, rather than just on opinions, judgments, intuition, and so on, to make decisions, analyze numbers, analyze facts, conduct surveys, see what is happening in other companies. Rely on something and say, let's do it because everyone else does it. Instead, let's do it because these numbers tell us this, and this is what's happening in the world, so we need to do this. Global cultural effectiveness. Human resources must think globally, must consider different cultures, especially in international companies. HR should understand that people from different cultures present certain challenges and complexities. By default, they don't understand each other perfectly. It's necessary to train people in intercultural interaction. Also, communications. Human resources must be an excellent communicator and clearly convey messages both in writing and verbally. Trends in HR work. The HR profession is currently undergoing very active changes, and for the next 10 years, they will continue because companies are testing robots. Robots will be introduced. For people, it will be a huge stress. There will be many conflicts. No one will know how to effectively build interaction. And the human resources department will need to manage all of this. Therefore, our profession is very exciting, interesting, and a lot is happening. Many people write about these trends. Let's get acquainted with the main ones. First, there is now a focus on teamwork instead of the classic hierarchy. And often these aren't just teams by departments, but some sort of project teams, cross-functional teams, and their effective work. Companies even use various tools to build teamwork, not only within departments. For example, the company Spotify, she managed to build 4 teams simultaneously. That is, an employee is part of 4 different teams based on different principles. There are companies like Unfix, for example, that help create such complex modern structures. Teams are becoming more flexible, more temporary roles, and team goals are emerging. An employee increasingly has multiple supervisors. Focus on who is doing what, not on what position is called. This is another trend, internal talent marketplace. searching for performers for different tasks within the company rather than outside. The role of the leader as a coach, not a strict boss or manager. This is also one of the trends. When talking about trends in people management, this is the main trend. Leader as a coach. I recommend watching the series Ted Lasso. The main character there demonstrates this role. It's about the ability to manage network structures, provide continuous feedback, conduct one-to-one meetings, and much more. Culture, not rules. This is another trend. Companies have concluded that trying to describe everything that can and cannot be done in the company, to document all processes, all instructions, and so on, is impossible. And it will still never be enough. Therefore, companies are looking for the solution is in how to build a culture where people will behave correctly and in the interest of the company. And there are already even studies that show which culture is the most effective, with priorities, focusing on which practices, focusing on what. And there is a study that shows a set of practices in the area of culture that allow a company to be effective. Companies that implement such a culture achieve much higher results in business, innovation, and in the area of people. The strategy of listening to employees. Well, let's say that HR, let me tell you, based on my experience, when Google Forms appeared as a free tool, that was around the year 2010. At the time, employee surveys became very popular. Companies began to massively study what people thought about working in the company. Now, companies have taken it a step further. It is no longer just a survey once a year. By the way, previously there were surveys conducted once every 2 to 3 years before the year 2010, then once a year. Weekly pulse surveys appeared. I remember we used 15.5 or People Force at Preply. There, you can even ask people almost every day how they are doing. But now, technologies have advanced and study more regularly what is happening with people. This is also a cool trend, probably one of my favorites, working 4 days a week. We may not believe in it, but very soon, and robots will contribute to this, we will work not a 5-day week, but a 4-day week. By the way, in many countries, they still work 6 days a week. Students from Uzbekistan and Tajikistan constantly say that this is a common practice for them. At one time, I almost didn't catch this. In Ukraine, it was like this too. They worked 6-day weeks, meaning it was normal to work 6 days a week with only 1 day off. But for some, the 5-day work week seems like a fantasy. For those who work a 5-day week, it seems normal. Therefore, a 4-day work week is what awaits everyone. In recruitment, there are specific trends focusing on consulting. That is, a recruiter is seen not as someone who just fills job positions, but as a person who provides consultation and has a thorough knowledge of the labor market. Another interesting trend is that people are becoming older, whether you encounter it or not, or have encountered it. Not so long ago, companies listed 25 to 45 years old in job vacancies. That means people over 45 years old seemed already unsuitable for many positions. What do we see now? Most presidents, most entrepreneurs are well over 70 years old, and they feel quite normal. The current president of the USA is 74 or 78 years old. Donald Trump, I don't remember exactly. Well, companies need to prepare for this too, because people do not plan to retire at 50 or 60 years old. Moreover, they no longer look like grandmothers and grandfathers at 50 to 60 years old. They are great with computers and they are modern. This company needs to realize and change. ChatGPT, of course, is a mega trend and it goes further. It's robots now. For example, BMW is already testing robots on their production lines. Tesla is testing robots. Many Chinese companies are already producing robots. So in a couple of years, there will be robots. In every large company, at first, there will be very few, but as they develop, there will be more and more. HR automation, to some extent, is a trend because artificial intelligence is coming there too and changing processes, allowing for many things better. English language. It's purely a trend for human resources because all modern trends, even human resource trends, will first be published in English, and it is fortunate if someone translates them later. When it comes to social networks, the trend is Twitter. A modern HR, and particularly an HR journalist, should be on Twitter, read the news, because all key news is first published on Twitter. For transparency in payment, this is another trend. Companies are trying to make payment more transparent. Some companies even publish salaries on their website. Comfortable offices. This is a trend that continues. That is, companies realize that so that remote workers come to work in the office needs to be cool. The office should be better than people's homes so that they want to come there. Hybrid workplaces in the office are an attempt to connect people working remotely and in the office. Metaverses. Kids play their Roblox, Minecraft. They are already used to interacting and solving tasks in metaverses, and they will be ready to work in this way. Well, companies are also trying to develop. Many companies are experimenting. Microsoft and Meta are trying to combine augmented reality, virtual reality, and the real current reality using glasses. Some companies are not waiting for technologies and are using solutions, even two-dimensional ones, for collaboration like Geyser to work together. You can also prepare for virtual reality. Here are a few ideas on how to do it. What else? There is currently very large migration in the world, and it grows and increases every year. In the year 2020, it was about 3.6%. Now, due to wars, conflicts, and massive migration to Europe from countries. Africa? Well, partly from Asia, I think migration has grown to about 5% of the world's population. And this means that companies need to learn to work with different cultures. That is, if before there were many countries with almost no migrants, there were countries like the USA, a country of migrants, on one hand, and on the other hand, countries like France, England, and many others, where the indigenous population was 95%. Now in England, indigenous English make up less than 35%. I recently saw a chart about the population of England, and I was just shocked at how much everything has changed. Therefore, you need to be prepared for this as well. Here are migration trends which apply to all continents. North America was usually a leader, but now Europe, has been overwhelmed by flows of migration from different countries. On one hand, many people from Ukraine. On the other hand, from a lot of people from Arab countries are moving, various ones, and this will continue. There is no trend indicating that for some reason people will migrate less. What to do? Here, it is necessary to prepare employees for dealing with people from different cultures. They need to know how to get along with them. You need to work with them. Due to migration, not only are employees different, but clients are different too. That is, the clients of any company are now from different cultures, nationalities, religions, and so on. Here are some useful links to studies. So, what does an HR generalist do? Let's summarize. So, what does an HR generalist do? Let's summarize. Handles recruiting and candidate assessment, employee training and talent identification, employee motivation through the total reward system, performance management, and OKR. Work with engagement and burnout, leadership development, and HR partnership, managing corporate culture and communications, change management, and implementing HR projects, builds a people management system, automates HR in the company, deals with employee retention and turnover. HR analytics, budgeting metrics, and employee experience from onboarding to termination. This is what an HR generalist does, and our course covers these areas. Homework is to assess your professional knowledge and to what extent you manage to apply this knowledge in percentage terms. These are the recommended books that I suggest reading, and that's where our session ends. Next, you can look forward to our Power webinar. As you can see, all the topics described here and even more are covered. When you submit all your homework, I'll remind you, we will issue you a diploma. You have 1 year to complete everything. I recommend attending 1 lesson per week and submitting 1 assignment per week. That will be the most effective. When everything is ready, there is an instruction here on how to obtain your diploma in this presentation. Well, and how to add it to your LinkedIn. There will also be instructions on how to download and copy the badge, how to use the link. And after completing this course, I recommend not stopping at what you have achieved, but continuing to develop further because the profession requires it. So here are options for continuing this course, what you can study next. That's all. Thank you very much to those who were online with me. See you soon in the course. Bye-bye.